All right, as Christine heads down, I'll call up my next panel, and I think we're going to fill the chairs. So come on up, ladies. Right behind. There's Tanya. Oh. All right, well, here we go with our next panel, and I talked about our panel discussions being kind of like you're having around your round tables. This one is a little more like around our kitchen table because, well, for three of us, or for four of us, we're kind of like neighbors, and we welcome an import. So we're very pleased to have, let's meet our import first. Stephanie Rodiger. Stephanie comes all the way from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and she is the Director of Canadian Grain for CP Rail, and she's been there over 17 years, and also an active member of CP's Women in Leadership Mentorship program. So thanks, Stephanie, for coming up and joining us. And next to Stephanie, we have Melissa Reinhardt. Melissa is the Manager of Business Development of our Farm Credit Canada, and she's based in my hometown of Red Deer. Lessons learned in 4-H and in rodeo helped ground and lift her career path within FCC, and she is still chasing cows. Of course, we also have Kelly Smith-Fraser just down the road at Pine Lake, and she also chases cows regularly. If you don't catch her in the home office, she's probably in the corral. She and her family have New Haven Cattle Company. She's currently serving as the board chair for AFSC, Alberta Financial Services Corporation. She was also the first female chair of Alberta Beef Producers and is passionate about youth in agriculture. And working with youth daily is, working with youth is a daily privilege for Tanya McDonald. Tanya is the interim vice president for academic and for research at Lakeland College up in Vermilion. I know Lakeland has a booth here, and I've seen lots of Olds College people here too, and Tanya used to work with Olds College, so again, passion for working with youth in agriculture, and she gets excited about innovation and education. So my neighbor said I can only ask easy questions, so I don't know where to begin. But let's first of all maybe start a little bit, Stephanie, a bit about this Canadian Pacific Women in Mentorship program. How does that work, and what kind of a success has it been?
So it's a fairly new program with CP. They started it maybe just a year ago, and they gave the opportunity for all of the women leaders within CP from all departments to volunteer to be a mentor. And then they took and they matched us up with mentorees, and they went similar to what Cargill talked about with taking outside of your business unit. So you were mentoring up with people who you really didn't know a lot about their performance. So it becomes a true relationship building exercise with them. I've got 3 mentees, and it's been a really great experience seeing CP from their eyes, because they're all departments that I've never worked in.
Tanya, you work with students a lot. How important is something like mentorship to students? And you've watched students, go through and then become back as researchers. Tell us a bit about that process.
Yeah, certainly mentorship is a very important component, and I think the mentor learns as much as the mentee through the process. And so I think as in the college environment, we have a lot of opportunities for mentorship, student to student, faculty member to student, and of course within our leadership teams. And so I think we are certainly embracing mentorship even in our athletics programs. We look at coach empowerment programs that have mentors. So there's just so many opportunities, and I think it's extremely important for young people to have that opportunity, but also for us as the mentors to learn from them with a fresh set of eyes.
Interesting, how Christine talked about getting heard, and when you think about, Kelly, some of the things that you've done and getting heard and getting your voice out, why was it so important for you to serve and to get, certainly you have enough to do on the ranch, why get out and take the risk and get involved in some of these organizations?
Honestly, Diane, I grew up in a family that was incredibly involved in our industry organizations, from my dad to my mom as well. and my uncle, they've served on national boards, local boards, and it was just something that as a family, as well as my grandparents, it was something that as a family, we've always felt that we need to give back to the industry that gives so much to us. So as a kid, I grew up with my dad being, traveling and being involved in those boards, and I always thought, I'm never gonna be like that. And then all of a sudden, I started watching some of the ladies that he spoke about with respect and the wonderful things that they were doing. And I never thought that I would follow in their footsteps. And I was always mystified by those ladies. And I've been very honored to have had them as role models and get to follow along. So it was always a big thing that you better be at the table or else somebody else is, and you might not like what their opinion is.
So there's a big part of that. How important, though, Melissa, when you think about getting involved in some of these organizations or even within your own outfit, to be authentic as you do that? How important is it to be real?
I think you got to be yourself. That's the one thing, anyone that you meet, you can tell when they're not real, right? And any of the best leaders, I've met a lot of great leaders through my time working with Farm Credit and even in the ag industry, is they're all different. And they all have their unique qualities, but they're authentic to themselves and they're true. I think of one of our leaders at Farm Credit, our COO. She's a tiny little French lady, and she is who she is. And you know who she is, you know what her values are, you know what she's striving for. And I really appreciate that. So I appreciate people who are themselves.
Is that what you find too, Stephanie? And that's what's taken you far too?
Absolutely. I think that, I've been fortunate at CP that I've had, lots of great leaders. I've been in a couple different departments, and we have just a wide variety of people that you learn from, and you pick and you choose all the different pieces, as you move through your career, and you try to grasp onto those and really let those resonate with you. And then you help to try to transfer those out and help the team that you're building be better than you are so that you can continue to grow.
I think I was talking with some people ahead of coming down here, and we were talking a little bit about getting your voice heard, and some worlds now are getting to be much more balanced, but there are some people who work in worlds that are still predominantly male, and if you're in that kind of a situation, how do you know when to push and make sure that your voice is heard, and when it's time to back off and not be as aggressive as we could be or should be, maybe? Do you ever have challenges in finding that right sweet spot? Kelly?
I don't know if you've ever sat on a board with me, but I don't know if I ever have felt that my voice shouldn't be heard. I'm always, I find I have to be my authentic self. And yes, there are times where I've sat back and I think you really have to, I spend a lot of time on board, so I really find I have to sit back and let the other people say what needs to be said so that my voice can echo theirs and give them that positive reaffirmation that they're saying the right thing and that we're going down the right path. So it's always that part of trusting in the people that are sitting in the table around you and having that viewpoint heard and really, but then there's those times where I'm not afraid to push back.
Somehow that doesn't surprise me. No, that's right. Tanya, I was going to say about your experience.
Yeah, I think for me, it speaks back to that emotional intelligence piece that someone mentioned earlier, and so I kind of tried to think about the definition of emotional intelligence and found this one: the ability to understand, use, and manage your emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, overcome challenges, and diffuse conflict. And I think that, as you're saying, when should your voice not be heard? I think your voice should always be heard, but you need to be able to manage the emotion and manage the message in a way that is going to resonate with the people around that table.
Yeah, I think one thing I've learned through my years is to just slow down a little bit. I've always felt I have to go really hard at anything I do. I don't know. Maybe it's just the ag background, and I've always had a get shit done attitude. That's what all my bosses have said. It's just get shit done. And I've had to, like, I guess I can swear. Someone else sweared up here today, so I'm good, right? So, yeah, I just slow down. Yeah, you were the one who were not allowed to swear. I can swear. So, no, just sometimes you got to slow down and make space for others. Others don't move maybe as fast as you, right? They may need time to process or think or be part of that conversation. So when you say emotional intelligence, it's those that can sit back sometimes, listen, actually listen to what the other people are saying, and not listen to respond to them. It's listen to hear what they're saying and understand, and then come together on something.
I see you nodding your head, Stephanie.
I work in logistics, so everything's always on fire, right? But it is, I mean, it's absolutely what Melissa said about just slowing down and understanding the information that's coming at you and processing what people are telling you so that you can come up with, or hear their solutions, because 9 times out of 10, they have a better solution than I do. So it's listening and it's hearing what they have to say, and just slowing it down a little bit sometimes.
But thinking that someone else's solution might be better than your own, that takes a little measure of humility, I guess. Is that part of being your authentic self too?
I think so. I've worked really hard this year on, coaching and trying to really practice my coaching skills, because it's not something that's natural. It's making sure that, people on my team or teams that I work with always feel comfortable to make sure that their opinion matters, they're here for a reason, and encouraging that conversation, and not just throwing the answers at them, because anybody can just do what you're told to do all the time. You're not here just to process things all the time. It's hear what people are telling you, understand their perspective, because the times are changing. Even in agricultural, things are changing, and it's, we have to listen.
Well, we said we'd have a little fun up here too. So, at least 3 of you, because you've got cattle in your background too, don't you? Yeah, a little bit, and have got farm.
I have
girls.
no cows.
No cows.
I have no
farm
cows.
background.
You want some?
No,
Yeah.
but I have 2 horses. Does that count?
Oh yeah, well there you go. So let's talk a little bit about lessons learned from agriculture, from the ranch in the pen. What kinds of things have you learned from there that have helped you in the boardroom, or in your structure in your organizations? Come on, Kelly, you've got some.
Well, some of those lessons can't leave the corral.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think number one that I learned from being a kid is never give up. It was even interesting the other day, I was golfing and I was done 1 hole. And my husband's like, you can't. And I'm like, I'm done. And I was telling a friend of mine this story, and she's like, Kelly, have you ever quit on anything in your life? And I might have, I don't know. But I just have that nature that I just can't give up until we find the solution, until we get to where we're in the right place. And I think it's just that perseverance that we get. We as ranchers wouldn't have survived BSC and everything if we didn't have that never give up attitude. And I think that carries us through so much. And it's something that I hope even my little girl can learn, and my niece and nephews can hopefully figure out someday that you just have to get through it, and you will. No matter what, you'll get through it.
And that's really the definition of resiliency, I think. What about?
Yeah, I learned a lot of lessons from my agricultural roots. My grandparents farmed at Kindersley and Eston, and so spent a lot of time on the farm there. And my grandma lost her husband, my grandpa in the war, and really valued education. And so, in no matter what position you are, who you are, being a lifelong learner. And so she used to put all her money, she called it her cigarette and whiskey money, because of course she never smoked cigarettes or drank a drop of whiskey, but she saved all the money that she would have if she would have done those things. Any dollar she'd put in a jar, and then she'd give each of us as children or grandchildren money for education out of that, because of the importance of lifelong learning to her. And then my father, really instilled that in me as well, and lessons that we talked about earlier today about, you don't finish what you've started, no matter what that looks like. Sometimes you have to stick it out through the tough times. So, and I think my father did some farming, some irrigation farming around Outlook, Saskatchewan area before he came to be the Dean of Agriculture at Olds College, and I followed in his footsteps as the Dean, 27 years later. So I learned a lot from him. But as an irrigation farmer in Outlook, he was very innovative. So I think I was inspired by that innovation piece as well.
I'm going to go with communication. So I don't know, cattle. you don't just wrangle everyone up in the morning and everyone heads out and does their own thing, because that's obviously not going to work. And if you've been in those situations, you know they don't end very well. It usually ends in a yelling match or sticks getting thrown, things like that. So that's something I've brought to my work, is that you have to communicate. Anytime I see breakdowns amongst team members, it's usually around communication and not creating commitments, right? You were going to do this by this time, right? Oh, was that communicated? No, it was just assumed, right? So I always say, don't make assumptions. You guys know that saying, right? Don't do that. Communicate, communicate, communicate. And that's something I learned on the farm.
And every role is important, whether you're riding
Every
drag,
role is important, yes.
bring in their last one.
Everyone has a spot.
That's right. Stephanie, what kinds of lessons have you learned from agriculture, I guess specifically, or your own background that have helped you?
I think some of it's probably the patience. To be patient. You can learn a lot if you sit back and just watch. But I also, and I talk out of both sides of my mouth, to be patient, but you also, you need to ask for things, right? You need to be involved, you need to want to learn. So it's kind of balancing the two, because being patient with things around you and understanding the lessons that you're learning in the role that you're in, and then also asking for those next steps and not being shy about what you want.
So knowing when to act. Patient enough to observe and knowing when to act, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, we're having some fun up here, but there is a microphone available. So if you want to ask any questions, and they don't have to be easy. Only I had to have the easy ones. So you can ask some
no, they still have
hard
to be
questions. Easy. So come on up to the microphone, and are you headed to the mic? Okay, perfect. I didn't want to launch into something if someone was coming up.
You said you wanted a hard question, and that's what I have for you all today.
Okay, good.
My name is Hannah, and I run a grain farm, and I also co-host a podcast called The Diversity Imperative. So I think about inclusion in our sector from a broad perspective all the time. And I first have to say thanks to Kelly, because AFSC actually sponsored my pass to be here. So gratitude to you for recognizing women in ag. So a lot of the conference, the theme has been about empowering women on an individual basis. And looking at the four of you and so many of the women that I've talked to today, they're all empowered, they're all successful, and very confident, and they haven't really let anything stop them. So my question for you is, what do organizations need to do? What do we need to ask our sector to do to contribute to the other half of that equation? So when I'm feeling empowered and confident at the board table, what else has to happen from a broader perspective? So I'm so interested to hear what the four of you have to say about what you'd like the sector to do to help advance women.
Well, that's an interesting one. Where do we want to start?
I can throw a start at that. Thank you, and it's great to have you with AFSC. That's one thing I'm proud with AFSC as an organization. We are actually an organization, very large organization, I'd say, here in Alberta, and over 50%, I think it's about 60% of our staff are actually female. About 50% of our managers are female, and almost half of our board is as well. So, I think as an organization, we have done a lot of work, and I wasn't there for it, but I think they've done a great job. But what we do need is, I think, women leaders to step up and take that challenge. That it took a male counterpart to say to me, Kelly, I think we need to get you on the executive at ABP. And I said, no, I got a little kid, I can't. I've got cows, and I've got all these things. And he said, no, I don't care, Kelly. We as an organization need you. So we need people that are like myself, that have went down the path that I've went down, to say to you, come on board. But it doesn't just have to be females. It needs to be our male counterparts too. And those sometimes are a very unique individual to find. And I've been so appreciative of the ones that have taken the road with me, and they know how much I appreciate them, because they've usually given me the kick in the butt to go to where I needed to be. So.
Yeah, that's all right. Okay, 10.
Yeah, at Lakeland College, we have about just under 600 students in agriculture a year, and I think more than 60% of them now are female. So, we look at things like our new ag tech degree that we just launched, thinking, well, maybe we would need initiatives to encourage women to apply. No, it's the women that are applying. And I think we have a lot of industry influence in our programs, and I think really encouraged by the industry partners that are taking on those practicum students and giving them a chance. And so I think, like you said, what we need is both women and men to take a chance on the next generation of leaders in agriculture, because I think the women are here to stay.
I think another thing is you need to let people know that you want to do these things. I think back to my younger career, I didn't really say much. I just kind of worked and did my thing until I got to the point where I was like, no, I need to let it be known what I want to do and where I want to be within this organization, so that others can be like, oh, okay, oh, you want to do that, okay. Everyone's living in their own little world sometimes, right? And they might not realize. So if you can let them know and then find someone to help you, to be like, here's your strengths, here's your weaknesses, here's what we can work on, right? But if no one knows that, right, it's, yes, people do get plucked out of rooms and things like that, but let people know. I find that especially with some of my women employees, as and then they downgrade themselves. Well, I'm not ready for that, or, oh, well, I got to do this first, or they just maybe lack a little bit of the courage, right? It's like, no, you can do it, right? Get into it. So we got to encourage them, but also you need to let people know as well for yourself.
Stephanie?
I think sometimes at corporations, they're really good at putting people in boxes and where they think you'd be good at and developing you, but we forget to ask people, or people forget to tell them, what do you want? Where do you want to develop? What areas do you think that you'd be good? Which areas do you think that you need work? And then helping them steer their career path so that they can get those pieces to put the puzzle together, and working together. So I think it's just encouraging companies to ask those questions. So when you're talking to leaders, or as you become leaders, you ask those questions of people. What do you want? Where do you want to go? What areas are you interested in? What areas do you want to do more work? Where do you want to become better?
Hannah, are we on the right track, or are you wondering about some barriers that might still be out there?
Yeah, I mean, you all gave really great answers about what we can do as individuals, but because I'm still at the mic and I'm a podcaster, so I've got a lot to say and a lot to ask. So I guess my follow-up would be to maybe just have you think about more broad-scale, organizational, industry-wide things that need to happen, because there's so many women that are ready to step up. But if I look at some of the boards I just stepped off of, there were women there and there's not women there anymore. So what does that organization need to do to encourage grain farmers like me, running their operations or not, if they have a different role in their farm, to step up? Because I guess the point I'm trying to make is that there's so many people here that are ready, but why don't we see them in leadership roles? And it's not just the agriculture sector. If you look at corporate roles across the entire country, there's a lack of women, people of color, and folks with disabilities. So I guess that would be my question to everybody in the room, is what does our sector need to do? Because it doesn't just come down to us as individuals. Christine said, we can't go it alone, and we need to think about power and access to power. So
I think more stories would be for me. I don't know, Kelly's basically my neighbor. And I don't know her story, really. I know a little bit about from what I read, but I don't know the story of what it takes to be on a board. For myself, I don't know what that is. So that's the joy of social media and podcasting and all this is storytelling can do so much. So can we tell more of those stories so that, oh yeah, I am a rancher at home, and yeah, I could go do that. That doesn't sound as scary as I made it up in my head when I actually hear the story of what it was or what it is.
And to be inspired by those stories, then,
Yeah.
because then you don't have to live them yourself. Yeah, Tanya?
Yeah, I would agree in that, and that leads to kind of what the previous speaker said about demystifying the role, right? I think, like you said, if you could better understand what it means to have a governance role, what it means to be the vice president of an organization, it's about working with people, collaborating with people. It's all skill sets that women are very strong at. Being an empathetic leader, having impact, communicating, all the things that women are very, very good at. And so I think we need the women to be more willing to take risks and put themselves out there and be confident. We've talked a lot about confidence and courage today, and then I think I like what was said earlier about sometimes you're tapped on the shoulder by someone who recognizes the skill sets and the strengths that you have. And so if you see that in someone, tap them on the shoulder, ask them to step up to a board position, and I think that's how we can affect some change.
And I wonder too, even if not just women, but even any of these ag organizations, it's not easy to take the time away from your own operation. So you almost need recruitment for any of the board positions, regardless of who it is. I think, especially coming out of COVID and people reevaluating their priorities, yeah, maybe we need recruitment for all of those kinds of positions. We've got another question. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kinga. I'm a student here and your future Federal Minister of Agriculture.
All right.
So we talked a lot about today about being heard and persevering through challenges. As a student, as a young woman, I've been in two roles where I've either been put in a box or my ideas haven't been heard. I've been showing initiative, come up with ideas, proposals, but just wasn't being heard. In both of those situations with male bosses, I did end up leaving, and I found two other positions with absolutely phenomenal male bosses who recognized my worth and my ideas and my initiative. So as sad as it is to say, what would you guys say, has this come up before, and at what point do you leave and do you stop persevering because it's just not worth your effort anymore?
Well,
That's a hard one. No, you go ahead.
You go ahead.
I was just saying that's a hard one because I think it's such an individual answer for everybody. Everybody has limits and everybody has lines that, I think we draw, and it's different at every point in your life. Like my line was probably different 10 years ago than it is now. So I think you just really need to trust yourself and you need to believe in yourself so you know your value, and I think it's important that you stay true to that. And just know your boundaries. And there's a lot of jobs out there, and there's a lot of experiences out there. So it doesn't mean that you give up immediately, but you trust your gut and you go with your instincts on those.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we've heard a lot about values today, right? So if it doesn't align with that, then that's not the place for you, regardless of what that role might be, right? Mm-hmm. That's got to match up.
And rely on your support network. Those people that you surround yourself, that you trust implicitly. If they're seeing something that's not right, you listen to them, because they know it from the outside, and their only goal and their only perspective is to look after you.
Yeah.
For me, it depends on if it's the individual that has that perspective or if it's the organization. So I think I would look at the organization's their thoughts around diversity and inclusion and belongingness, and does that resonate with you, or so is it just one individual maybe that perhaps there's a way to have them leave and things could change. I mean, I did have an experience like this early on in my career. I was a research technician, and I had an idea for a research project, and I was told by my boss that technicians don't write proposals. Basically, like you don't have ideas, you just do as you're told. And in some ways, it fired me up more because I was like, well, you watch this, just hold on. We'll see who has ideas around here. And so in ways, it inspired me to work harder, and I did stick it out. And there was a personnel change. So in that case, it was just the person. But I think for me, it depends on if it's the person or the organization.
Mm-hmm. Good points. Any other questions? I think we've got one more coming up.
A while ago, men ran the boards, and now, what has changed that men are not even desiring to be on the board, and are we missing something for not having them there? Because before it was, we don't get the women's perspective. Now, are we missing having a man's perspective?
Yeah. Do we need balance? Yeah. Okay. Kelly?
Thanks for
Softball
picking
that
on
one.
me
Yeah,
on that one. No, I definitely, I think we need all perspectives. And to me, it doesn't matter gender. I'm proud of where we were at with AFSC, and I've sat on boards where I was one of one or two females. But I think we need to have everybody's perspective. And I don't find that it's undesirable to have a man sitting at the table, because we all have a different perspective. That I come from a different background, and I enjoy hearing everybody's opinion, whether they're wrong or mine.
Stephanie?
I think inclusion it's important, and having diversity and having multiple backgrounds of people coming in, whether it's male or female or a mix of both. I think it's just important to get, because you can get very stuck down a path if you're all like-minded, and you might be missing some major opportunities.
Blind spots, yeah.
I think too, like it's not even the male and women, it's like I look at Farm Credits Board, we have people that aren't involved in agriculture that are on our board, but maybe have a passion for it, or maybe don't even know about it, or maybe they're an accountant or a lawyer. So I think it's good to just get inclusion of just different types of folks. So.
Because that's how we grow, when we hear different perspectives.
Nothing changes if nothing changes, right? So,
yeah. Tanya, what about that balance factor?
I agree. I think it's a diversity of perspectives is what matters, not so much the gender. But I also think that a diversity of perspectives comes also with some age differences too, right? And so I think, the perspectives of young people need to be heard at the table, as well as some of those that have more experience.
So the message to you students is then they should be looking for some boards to get involved in. I mean, I think any board would be jumping with joy to get some young blood on them. Most of the boards that I've seen, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. You've got to start somewhere. You don't get to just jump onto the big board that you've always hoped that you would be on. That start somewhere, and as a student, get involved in your local associations, and just keep growing. Keep taking that next step. And I've joked that I had the year of yes. And if an opportunity comes along that aligns with your beliefs and the things that you are passionate about, take it. You'll find the time and the effort that it all comes along with it, and just be prepared to give back.
Saying yes within reason, though. You can get yourself spread too thin, I think, too. It's finding that balance on it as well. So, okay, it's nearly coffee time. One last call for questions? Any last thoughts from you guys on all this? We've had some fun up here, talked a bit about it, but, what's your send away? We've talked about takeaway. What's your send away to people here about being involved in agriculture, and then as a woman stepping up to leadership? Who's going to start? Tanya, we'll start at your end and work our way around this time.
Yeah, I think good messages about looking for opportunities, capitalizing on them, leveraging them, using those to your benefit. And then just back to mentorship, which we talked about at the beginning a little bit. My sister was my hugest mentor. I lost her a few years ago here to cancer. But her motto of how she lived life was attitude of gratitude. And so, just be thankful for the opportunities that we have, be thankful we can be here speaking today. Be thankful, you can go to work and you can go to the gym in the morning and have your health. And it's just, to me, I feel like that's an important message. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would just say it's such an exciting industry to be a part of. We've got to feed all these people. If that doesn't get you out of the bed in the morning, I don't know what will. So,
good point. Stephanie?
I would just say, I think it's important to always remember that the mentorship, whether you're the mentee or you're being mentored, or if you're being the mentee or the mentor, and networking. Networking is very important because you can learn so much. You form mentorships with people that you from all over North America.
Yeah, that help you all throughout. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Kelly?
These ladies are fabulous. I wish I could say that I had the same thought as them, but they're, wow. But to me, be true to yourself. Don't become somebody that you're not. You've got to stay the course, remain who you are, and to me, always look back to that support network that you've got. That I have some wonderful people that are in my corner, and I rely on them so much, and I always know I have to look after them too.
Mm-hmm. Good points. All right, how about a round for our panel? Thank you very much, ladies.
That was awesome.
We've appreciated your perspectives. Of course, Stephanie Rodiger, Melissa Reinhardt, Kelly Smith-Fraser, and Tanya McDonald. Look for them. They'll be around and have a chance to build into your network by getting to know them better.